Welcome everybody to this fireside chat on Serious on Sustainability. I'd like to introduce you to my guest today. His name is Matt Gray from Event Decision. A little round of applause. Yay. Matt, thanks for joining me today. Obviously, we've worked together for a number of years now. I think we met maybe 3 years ago.
Yes.
It was around about that time. It was when we were coming out of the challenges. We connected at an event sustainability breakfast where we compared notes.
I remember the morning well.
And you told me about the services and what you were looking to achieve with Event Decision. And here we are today, 3 years or so later on. Obviously, 2Heads as an agency has been going on a journey around sustainability since late 2019, early 2020. The industry has come on leaps and bounds. There's been a lot of great information out there, and I think we can kind of name check and thank Isla for all of the work that they have done creating those foundations. I know you've been on that journey alongside Isla, and it's been great for everybody out there across all types of event services. But I'd like to give you the opportunity, before we get stuck into more detail, maybe talk about Event Decision for those that haven't heard about Event Decision and how they partner with agencies, brands, and the wider industry to make a difference.
Well, thank you, James, and thank you for the invitation. It's lovely to be here. Leaps and bounds is a really good way to describe the whole event sector in relation to sustainability or responsibility, as we may talk later. Event Decision was founded in 2021, so that makes us nearly 5 now.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Not recognisable in the least. Even within those 5 years, there's many iterations of product and service. But ultimately, the mission is to help anybody, anywhere, deliver event more responsibly. So a number of tools. We are a tools and platform-based offering rather than a community, because we feel actually that's a really good way to be able to scale within sectors within industry and within the industry as a whole to maximize the benefit. But a small specialized team. Everybody in the Event Decision team is an event prof, if that's a word that we're all supposed to use now. So we've got ex-venue, ex-corporate, ex-marketing. I say ex, we're all still in events. So it doesn't matter where you are in the event ecosystem.
Seasoned professionals.
Absolutely. A genuinely really experienced team who've been delivering events for, they won't thank me for saying, probably at least 20 years each from different parts of the ecosystem. So it doesn't matter to us if you come from the agency side, like yourselves, whether you're venue, destination, association. Actually, we at Event Decision just look at the event, the end product. So it doesn't matter where you come in that ecosystem. We look at the event and we will show you how effectively you are delivering that event with a sustainability hat on. And I'm sure you'll ask me to explain that in due course. But actually, in a way, it's performance measurement, performance improvement in something that actually, we all know and love the event sector has been quite tardy in actually showing our clients how well we deliver our services.
That's right. Well, it certainly seems there was a big injection of momentum at the beginning when everybody was keen to learn, everybody wanted to help each other, and I think that's still the case. I think it kind of there's like a hype cycle to these things, and evidently, we go on a journey, we make some improvements, then new challenges come along, and the landscape is shifting. And I know you've worked quite hard, and you've taken us on that journey with you in terms of how sustainability is really morphed into a wider proposition around CSR, and actually how agencies and the events industry works and in symmetry with those wider CSR aspects and ESG. So, from I think I meant ESG.
Now we're befuddling everyone.
We are befuddling. Let's rewind there. Okay. So, I think, from the foundations of sustainability, the educational piece, and actually learning more about how we measure the impact of our experiences, and doing that in the first instance. And then the evolution of the conversation has moved more towards ESG, looking at the wider impact of the events that we all work on and how we bring that to life. And now I know that Event Decision has been on that journey, and you've taken us all on that journey. You know, we've worked very closely. You've been very keen to explain what the opportunity is and how sustainability is moving much more towards responsibility, and how that looks through the lens of what you do. So how are you partnering with agencies to deliver on those wider ESG challenges?
It's a really good question. The industry has morphed. So there was a great deal of talk around the early 20s about carbon. And it's a really valuable and absolutely valid metric to understand the most of the environmental impacts of any event, from the Olympic Games down to 100-person away day, and everything in between. Whether it's 10,000 people in a field or 50 suits in a hotel, it can all be equated into carbon. But we don't think that carbon is the be-all and end-all. In fact, I'm quite passionate about events being very, very strong in delivering social value, more of which probably later. But you asked at the beginning, why would an agency care? Why should an agency or a venue, or even we're working with destinations as well, or the corporate clients, why should you care? And there's three main reasons. The first one is commercial. Businesses that are better run and deliver a better product fare better. And there's no end of evidence from all the august places, Harvard Business Review and so forth, and then all the well thought of consultancy businesses who hit Google up if you need to find them, who can absolutely evidence that a better business delivering a better product fares better commercially. The second reason is legislatively. And even within the 5 years of Event Decision and since you and I have met, James, there's been quite big changes globally to that. So the European Union, the EU, have made some fairly fast steps towards legislating what's called Scope 3, 1, 2, and 3 carbon emissions for different sizes of companies. Has that momentum maintained at the current level? Not so recently. Yeah. So that's a little bit in flux. And then in the US, it's a different question entirely, given the macro political situation there, specifically in relation to carbon legislation. But the third reason is moral. And, I nor Event Decision, neither of us are the moral arbiters of this stuff. To some extent, people in senior roles like you at 2Heads can steer and guide the company in terms of your company values, and then through into, what you do operationally and how much you want to push that. I am not, and nor is Event Decision, a moral arbiter. You, in your role here, and other senior people within 2Heads can decide where the company goes and where you push the envelope and where you don't. And that's probably around what your business looks like and what you deliver. So actually, we have no moral standpoint at Event Decision. It's literally how can we help you, and how can we help you demonstrate that you deliver a great product. Then we're into the acronym piece that you mentioned. So yes, sustainability. The events industry went down a sustainability rabbit hole in terms of carbon in 2021, 22 and onwards.
Well, I know we were one of those agencies.
Yeah, and you start measuring this and you start measuring that.
Well, if something you could control it, you could obtain the data.
Can you? I mean, you can control the bits that you deliver.
Yes.
But as you'll know, the vast majority of a carbon footprint of an event belongs to delegate or visitor attendee travel.
Absolutely.
And that's a much more difficult factor to tackle and to reduce, because actually in our roles as event deliverers, do we want to reduce headcount?
No, if anything, you want to increase it.
Commercially, exactly. Yeah. So that's an ongoing discussion. But you mentioned we move wider from just the rest of the world outside of events looks at sustainability through three lenses: E for environment, S for social, G for governance, ESG. It's a bit different to CSR, which is corporate specific, but ESG, so Event Decision very quickly became one of the market leaders in delivering event-focused carbon reports. great. Clients are learning from them, agencies are learning from them, and that's fantastic. But it was fairly obvious fairly quickly that we should start to look at the S for social. If you look at some of the world's best known events, like even if we just stick to sport, I know I've mentioned the Olympic Games already, they are awarded ostensibly on the benefit to the location in which they are delivered. So we look back a long time ago now to 2012 in London, good things have happened for people, real people in the East End of London. And that was one of the major reasons.
It was a catalyst for a lot of great change.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so those very large events that have the time and budget associated with them can affect real change. So our view is, why can't we do that on the smaller gigs to a lesser extent? All right, we're not expecting a new building. Actually, I know you've delivered some, but or long-term changes. But we certainly can add to the social value of an event, even with a temporary, transient investment of an event into fixed infrastructure. So that's why we launched, a product that looks across the ES&G piece, and as we talked earlier, is having yet another layer to actually quantify that coming in early 2026.
Yeah, and I think that's how I've seen everything develop, is now, if it's seen as a priority, which it should be, there is an opportunity to learn so much more from the events and the projects that are delivered. A much more rounded picture that tells an improved story around responsibility of projects relating to ESG, which is fantastic, and it gives everybody a great opportunity to do more with very little additional information. It's a system of gathering information, measuring, telling the story, offering some value back. I think we have a lot of clients who are often, given the responsibility of measuring not just the success of their events, their projects, their experiences, but also the impact. And it's something that can be easily shied away from. And we know the agency industry has really pulled its socks up over the years, got a long way to go. There are some that are doing brilliantly, and we know who they are, and lists and awards like the Power 30 is a really great way to highlight how industry is improving around events and how agencies are making a difference individually and together.
It's great to see 2Heads in that for the second year running now.
Well, thank you, Matt. It's reassuring to know we're there. And, I think from our point of view, we know what our roadblocks are and, where we need to improve. What do you typically see as the roadblocks for success across all of the clients and the brands and the venues that you work with? What are the typical challenges that need to be cleared?
There's a few,
yeah,
and it depends how sort of deep down into motivation you want to go.
Level. But, what's your top three?
Ultimately, events are transient.
Yeah,
right. So you're putting into something for one of your big aerospace companies or one of your big media clients. You build it for a week, you run it for a week, and then it gets taken down in 6 hours or something. The event sector is unique in that, if we were selling, oranges off the shelf in Sainsbury's, the supply chain is relatively stable. You're selling the same product off the same shelf. We know they like to move everything around, but the same product, yes, buy something else. So they're selling the same product off the same shelf day after day after day. Events isn't, as events, you might be delivering the same chalet for a global media client at the same show, a MIPCOM, year after year. I'm sure you have. I know you have. We've seen your events. And yet the look, the feel, the infrastructure, the supply chain may be different each and every time. You might have a different spot within that location, or they want something that looks completely different, or they're going from 4 stories to 1, or all the different variables that are involved. So you're having to create that supply chain and create something that is responsible and sustainable and not wasteful for different product every single time for all your clients. So that's a kind of tactical different challenge to people. We are seeing the start of some, we work with 200 or so event brands, some agencies, some corporate event teams. And nobody comes out overtly and says this, but there's always an underlying current of we're a little bit frightened to engage with this stuff in case we get to be seen in a bad light.
Okay.
And I think in terms of blockers, that must be one. Yeah. I spend a lot of time with our clients just talking them through. So, for example, we would never publish 2Heads data. So there's no danger of an accident. And how on earth are you supposed to benchmark and understand where you are from within, this amorphous event sector if you don't start getting some data and start reporting it and seeing where you can improve? And it's a grown-up approach. I get it. And the events industry likes to think it's grown up. It's been around a while, 100 years or so. We like to behave like teenagers sometimes, don't we? But actually, it's a grown-up approach to go, we've got this structured framework. Event Decision offers a 3-year pathway, years 1, 2, and 3. You've done a fair bit of benchmarking with us. Some of your team will understand what the carbon impacts are. Now we need to start looking at how you can increase the S of ESG, the social impacts, which are not as hard as you think it may be. A lot of the things you do already will be contributing to some extent to social value. A lot of the decisions you and your team, especially more operationally focused, make already will be on commercial grounds.
Yes.
And a lot of those align with sustainable practice or responsible practice, however you want to look at it. Don't send 3 trucks when 2 trucks will do is a really simple example. Why would you?
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Absolutely. And just from a cost of doing business, cost to the client, cost to the project. I've always believed, and I've been wholehearted about this since the beginning, that obviously you need a great team on any given project, on a given account. The data becomes important because it gives you that baseline, that foundation of learning, even if it's not the most promising, perfect event right at the beginning. It gives you the opportunity to grow, evolve, and learn from it. So I've always believed that it is important to have that baseline, whether it's agencies' operations, individual projects. And I think it's helped us consider how we do these projects, how we interact in the industry, and started to think a little bit different. 2Heads as a business has always done amazing trade show work. And the great thing about trade shows is it happens regularly. There's a cadence to it. There's kind of the route march. You go to the events, there might be one big event a year, there may be 20 events. But I think when you actually think about the opportunity that presents, and it's a little bit different to an ad hoc single event, there's always the opportunity to create something and for it to have a longevity. And I think we always talk about the repurposing of assets and then being very smart around how it's produced, where it's kept, how it's looked after, can create, there's not much going back to landfill for a long period when it's programmed that way. And I think the other consideration for us as an agency is we've learned better how to kind of think globally but act locally. And I think that more local sourcing, considering resources from close to the point of delivery, in terms of supporting local industry and giving back a little bit, we've been subconsciously perhaps doing it without necessarily realizing and understanding the benefit of those decisions. So everything we've talked about so far in terms of how that comes and looks from a wider ESG point of view feels like the information is quite readily available. It's just not being captured and then consolidated as a piece of information that becomes even more useful moving forwards. Does that stand to reason? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Have I articulated it well?
100%.
Okay.
And the event sector has lots of ironies within it in terms of sustainability. So things like the largest factors in relation to an event, as we mentioned, will be the travel. It's often the factor as an agency you have the least control over it. Only your own bit.
Yeah.
And the client just says, deliver this in this spot, go.
Yeah.
Not, well, is that the best spot? Or they have to go to a MIPCOM because that's where the show is. Then there's a different discussion with the show owner. But you already have done this. So, you've got multiple locations around the world. Why is that? Because you want to maximize on the locality.
Yes.
Whether it's from supply side or from sales side. Sometimes event buyers will buy in events run by agencies halfway around the world. Often they like to look people in the eye. There's a reason I'm here now, not doing this on Teams.
Yes.
There's a reason I travel around, sometimes internationally, to meet customers and build partnerships. That's what events are all about, isn't it? So otherwise, we'll all descend into efficient mediocrity, because we can go back to the heady heights of 2021 too, where everything was on these screens. And as we found out immediately afterwards when we were all released, people really value contact, all that stuff, the engagement piece. So in terms of blockers, yes, there's that fear bit of being shown to be in the wrong way, but also there is always a balance of the most carbon efficient way to deliver a meeting is online. Virtual meetings. Very simple, very low carbon
There's
emissions.
still some carbon in the background, as we still using energy to have those meetings.
But events,
and probably drinking way too much tea and coffee whilst doing it as well.
Yeah, and sitting in your pajamas off screen, or however you do that.
I'm not sure about the carbon impact of sitting in your pajamas, but it's not a good look.
But events are not about that, are they? I mean, the reason why 2Heads has grown and been attractive to suitors, as we've learned recently, is your ability to get people together and to showcase a brand, and that involves more than the very bare minimum. You could put up in any one of your trade shows a blank wall with some words on it. This company sells good stuff. You should too. Or you should buy it. Well, that's kind of what you're saying. But you don't. You invoke all sorts of different tactics and strategies to get buyers to engage with that brand. And you do it well because you have a wide portfolio and a long history. So if you can do that well, but minimize any additional carbon footprint and maximize any social value, which as I said, you're already doing some of. As you said, you're just not capturing that data and making the best of it. It's all there. A lot of our customers, and our products are designed to be really, really quick. So a carbon footprint report will take you, as your team will attest, I'm sure, about a minute's worth of work at your end. A little bit longer at ours, but yes. About a minute.
I'm not sure they'll agree with the 1 minute thing.
Well,
they'll probably tell you they need to get their head in.
Dragged and dropped a few documents.
But if you're prepared for it, then it is very straightforward. If you try and do it, or you plan to do it retrospectively, then there's a little bit of legwork. So if you make it part of your project planning process, then it all happens very naturally. That's my point of view.
Yeah. And I mean, we mentioned the 3-year pathway. 1 year year one we call measure and baseline, and it always takes a little while to get used to a new process. That's part of that's life, humanity. Year 2 is standardize and integrate, and that's where it becomes really, really quick. And year 3 is optimize and differentiate, and that's where you start to make financial hay based on your ability to show your customers. You don't have to wait until year 3; it works before, but that not only do you deliver a brilliant, engaging ROI, addresses their KPIs, if we're talking acronyms today, in terms of, and creative experience that they've asked you to, but you can do it, without costing the earth, literally, and actually helping some humans as well. So it's not a be-all and end-all. We know where everybody tells us sustainability is their top priority. We would disagree. The commercial sustainability of their organization is usually their number one priority.
Yeah.
But actually, to be able to deliver a great product, and this is where the word responsible becomes more applicable. Why wouldn't you want to do that as a leader? Why wouldn't you want to show your audiences, your own team, for all sorts of reasons, what we deliver is really good? Not just in ESG, but actually it's a really good, viable product that our clients enjoy. It does what it needs to do for them. It minimizes environmental impact. It maximizes social, and we run our company well. We've got great internal processes. That's what governance is really about. Oh, and by the way, we've learned how we can actually measure those without taking too much time.
And again, it comes back to being brave and, standing for something. And I think, so often we've all heard it, the budget side of things. People do raise it, and I understand why they raise it. Maybe both agency side, venue side, and brand client side. It's always raised as a topic. But my point of view, and people are probably tired of me banging this particular drum, is that if you have a budget, it's how you divide it up and prioritize what needs to be spent where, and understand when you're going to events, whether it's a trade show, whether it's a conference, whether it's a live event or a corporate event, it's understanding how many people actually need to be there, understanding how to best utilize the budget and be responsible at the same time. And that's the difficult balance, because people will always prioritize and have at the top of their agenda keeping everybody happy is a natural thing to do. Yeah. And if we've got 100 people that want to go, when really only 75 people should be going, or it makes more sense for this event, let's just say it's in Europe, but half of the people that are coming from North America rather than Europe. These are big, bold decisions to make. But sometimes, actually, in terms of spending and appropriating budget, sometimes the easy decision is to not do anything different, and therefore budgets become exhausted because there's a lot of ancillary costs relating to them. So that's perhaps a polarizing thing to say, especially for brands that have that challenge, client stakeholders that have that challenge. But for me, the biggest hurdle to jump is understanding how to do things differently and prioritize what helps you measure, what helps you understand, not just across ESG, but also impact of your event, how the ROI or the ROE we sometimes hear about, ROE talked about, and everybody's looking for that golden egg, which is the perfect balance of measuring, understanding success, longevity, making a difference to the world and to your business, your brand. Wow. I mean, there's opportunity if
you should be a salesman.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say
right. It's that middle bit. This is where the skill lies. So anybody could have or calculate the carbon footprint of the event. It's much harder to quantify, although we think we're there now, to quantify the social value yield of an event. But you're right, it conflicts. If this was easy, we'd all just be doing it.
Yeah.
And you would just do A, B, C, D, E every time, and we'd all move on and pat ourselves on the back. Of course it's not like that. It's far harder to balance, as you say, budgets. Some of the large agency players, the BCDs and American Expresses of the world, have both identified that 2026 cost constraints will be one of the hardest obstacles for our sector to overcome. It's not going to disappear overnight. And there will be many others as well. But actually, it's that balancing, as you say, of, well, do we just deliver a bare bones event and keep as much of the budget as we can as an agency, or do we?
I think that's usually the opposite challenge, Matt. I think.
Yeah. So, how do we get it all in there?
Yeah. Well, yes. And how do we make everything happen?
And your customers. I was on a corporate collective last week with 20 heads of events, and they're like, we just can't deliver what our stakeholders want for that amount of money. Now that inflation or the cost of this, cost of that, or even getting people into the said country might be quite difficult now. So they're balancing some really tricky stuff, go, no-go decisions. So ESG doesn't always sit at the top of the tree. I'm well aware of that. But for those agencies and clients who do want to understand how good their product is, bear in mind, for most brands, certainly the aerospace ones and the media ones, corporate or B2C events are the most public place they will ever be in front of other people,
and they're usually huge investments as well.
Yes, I don't know how much a global media company spends on one of their giant global shows, but you want to wow people and have the look at us effect, but without being overly ostentatious, and that needs balancing. The days of I hope the days of giving out 5,000 iPads. I'm sure other pads are available, or that type of gift is now being seen as a bit ostentatious. And people are beginning to think, swag is a major source of waste, sadly. do we need to do this? Can we do a digital equivalent that is more useful? From your perspective, the stuff that goes into the chalet or the expo or the stand, whatever it's called, can we reuse it? And even that's not easy. Some of the global, racing teams move around the world every 6 months, 3 races here, 6 races there, and so forth. And they want the same hospitality experience across each. Should they build 1 and ship it? Should they build 3? Will they be of comparable quality? Will they be having 2Heads deliver that? All these difficult questions.
So they should.
Difficult questions, which have no easy answer.
Now, talking of difficult questions, and clients, brands, they're always keen to know what's next. Learn a glimpse into the future. Where is all this heading, and where is this all heading through the lens of events? Now, I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, and I know I do on broader topics, and it's a question that a lot of the teams also have asked of them. So it's a tough question, Matt, but I think you've got a good handle on this. Where do you see this heading in the future? What's happening now? Obviously, you've talked about the wider ESG and the responsibility and how we start to build that better picture. But is there a glimpse into the future, how you're seeing this evolve, and what can we expect next? Where's the opportunity?
Well, as usual, you're right. Yes, we do get asked this a lot. And we don't have a crystal ball, but we do see a lot of different approaches and 200 at least different customers all trying to do the same thing. So right now, there is a gap between intent and action. The intent is always there, even if, so we've yet to see an agency or a corporate or an association or destination or venue who don't say that they want to deliver sustainably and responsibly. Great. Tick box there. Action. Intent and action. So there is a performance gap between what people say they want to do and what they're doing. That's probably because of those challenges that we've just discussed. So how do we help that? Well, we provide tools that are simple and easy and deliver pragmatic. And that's the really important word, pragmatic advice that people can actually use. It's all well and good saying, well, here's your carbon footprint, people. Thanks very much. Next. What can you do with that? Or here's the review of our company performance across E and S and G. What can we do with that? And it looks like this because of the nature of the business that we deliver, which might be different to event company B or C next door. So tools are becoming more effective, quicker and easier to use to bridge that gap between action and intention. I think the word sustainability doesn't seem to be going anywhere. It means different things to different people, but I think it will eventually morph. There'll be more procurement scrutiny.
There already is.
Yeah, it's in every RFP. Yeah. We know that once projects are awarded, sometimes it's the first thing to fall off the table. But less so. So at least, 10 years ago, this was never a paragraph in the RFPs you would have responded to, no doubt. Now it is. And as the buying community get better used to how events are delivered and actually what they can expect from you, that will become more specific. So tools will continue to dominate to help you do that. Hopefully, we will be there or thereabouts. A lot of people talk about sustainability being a nice to have or a need to have, not a nice to have. I think so. It sits somewhere in between at the moment. You can absolutely deliver an event without any of our stuff. People have been doing it for nearly 100 years globally. But it might morph into more the value and risk type of language where procurement are interested going, this agency has the ability to deliver the creative know-how and the tactical delivery on site. Can they do that with minimum brand risk for us in terms of environmental and social impact and value? So procurement scrutiny will increase across E to start with, because everyone's familiar with our Lego bricks of tons of carbon, but more so also if you can demonstrate, you get this in public sector already. You have to demonstrate that you're delivering some social value to win the public sector contract. Yeah. Why is the private sector not doing this?
Well, because it doesn't have to yet.
Yeah, but if it's a commercial advantage, I think it will. Because the private sector grabs everything that's an advantage by its nature. So more procurement scrutiny. I think travel reduction may become an area that they look at, but probably from a cost perspective, and it might be dressed up as sustainable saving. But ultimately, I think those who see sustainability or delivering or having a responsible company, plenty of badges you can do to demonstrate that: ISO, EcoVadis, SBTI, B Corp, all that lot.
Collect the set.
Great. Have your Cub Scout bits.
Yes.
And you need those. You do need those to demonstrate good
because
process.
they do quite frequently come up in a lot of those initial stages of engaging a new brand, and they come through, they get raised in QBRs and, looking at extension of contracts where, the landscape has changed for brands. So they're important to stay focused around.
Absolutely, and rightly so. It says we have a certain standard here. So those will continue. We'll potentially see, a focus on travel because it's expensive in cash and time. Is that a threat to events? No, I don't think so. If you're delivering a good product, people will want to come. So I think those who will do well in the next couple of years will be agencies and venues and corporate clients and so forth, who don't see sustainability and responsible delivery as a reporting challenge. Because I think a lot of those blockers are being circumvented quite simply by people like Event Decision, but actually, or a compliance challenge. If you see it as an opportunity to deliver a better product, and an opportunity to therefore win and retain more business, that's the angle Event Decision takes. No issue at all with people trying to use our tools to win business. If you're delivering a great product, do more of it. Like 2Heads do. You've won a plethora, we've noticed, of new clients, new logos in the last 12 months or so. Now, some of that will be because you carry your badges, you've got a great client roster already, you have a great creative team, and some of it will be you can do all of that and deliver it sustainably. So that's a glimpse into the next couple of years.
And I think you're right. Thank you for that. And I think, we have absorbed, taken on board, tried to grow as an agency. It's not easy to do it wholeheartedly, and actually we're very lucky because we've got some some champions in the agency that are really committed to action, and that unit, the champions of sustainability, continues to grow. It started slowly. We're engaged with consultancies out there. I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning Chrissy and the team at World's Better,
Not at all,
who
do.
have actually been helping us and continue to
Brilliant
help us
team.
evolve how we act and behave around sustainability in particular in the agency, and helping take that team on a journey. And we continue to strive for better and more, to do all of these things more wholeheartedly. I think really we're trying to improve how easy this is for the teams, make their lives easier, make it easier for the brands that we collaborate with the partners that we collaborate with, and really, be at the forefront of what we're doing. But we recognise we've got a long way to go. And I think anybody that talks about their point in the journey realises that you've got to keep pressing to evolve, to move forwards, to
and
do
we would ask
more.
that of you. Keep pushing us.
Absolutely.
Our company, Event Decision, is where it is because in the first, for many reasons, one of the reasons in the first 6 months of operation was because of a lady called Roxy. You know who you are, Roxy, who used to call me every Tuesday afternoon. We would have, she was working as an implant in an agency in the UK, every Tuesday afternoon, and would push us. I want this. I need that. I need the data like this. It needs to be look like that, and so forth. And we are a better supplier for that. So I may regret this, but do push us. Tell us our clients want it like this. We want it like that. Can you measure? Get savvy, as it's going to be called, which is the social value yield of an event, which will enable you to go, of the £250,000 budget, £67,422 worth is aligned with social value. And you'll know how to use that metric to win and retain more business. But it's the first time it's been measured. That's come because clients are like, well, you're really good at helping us with the E part. Now, what about the S? You can show us what we do. Can you quantify it? The answer is yes, now, as you know. So just keep pushing us. And, nobody's nailed this. If we had to be a working model that is super simple, but that's not the events industry, is it? it's malleable, and we can't even define who we are really.
It shifts and it changes so rapidly. And the projects are often, the timelines of these projects mean you start off with the best of intentions around the planning, but it evolves so quickly and it changes so quickly. There's only so much you can control. You made that point earlier. Control what you can.
Yep.
And the rest, you can seek to improve the next time around. And, I've been desperate to do this for ages. In the early days of measurement, and now I know when we're measuring the impact of projects together, there's a way of doing it, but in other forms of measurement, I remember somebody asking the question once, which is, how much should I allow in terms of impact for a cable tie? And I just had no.
Did you ask me that?
I know it wasn't you, but it was something that came up in one of the communities using one of the tools, and I just had to admire that, because that was somebody that was looking for every single little detail. And I think what we've learned since, and this was very early stages, is again, you can be a little bit more broad stroked. You don't have to look at every nut, bolt, cable tie, although cable ties, there must be a lot of waste from cable ties.
Well, 100%,
sorry, electricians.
100% waste.
Yeah, exactly. But I admire the way in which people embraced it, continue to embrace it. The champions that are out there are doing a great job, and I thank them for that, because without them continuously pushing forwards, we would have really stagnated, perhaps gone backwards. So for those that make a difference, keep making a difference. More people, please. More partners like Event Decision, who are doing a fantastic job. I encourage everybody to connect with Event Decision if you're not already understanding how to measure ESG in the work you do. This has been a great session. Matt, is there any final thoughts from you? Anything you'd like to add?
No, we finished where we started. Yeah. It is possible now to measure the E, the S, and the G. So that enables anyone, anywhere in the entire events ecosystem to understand the impacts, positive and negative, that delivering an event has. And that as a concept is still quite new.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thanks for helping us all become more savvy in this very scary world. I do appreciate it. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on this 2Heads Talks fireside chat. You can catch our content through our website, on our YouTube channels, on our social channels. Looking forward to sharing more content with you in the future. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Cheers, Matt.